everyone, welcome back. Hope you're all doing really well. Today I'm going to be bringing you another one of my 5 book recommendations within a certain genre or theme videos. I'm sorry that I've now done 2 of these in a row, but it is Pride Month, so of course I had to do a Pride themed version of this video. I have already done one LGBTQIA+ recommendations video, so I'll link that down below so you can go and check that out if you want more of my recommendations within this field. But I always knew that I'd want to do a part 2 at some point, and Pride Month is the perfect time. Like always, I've tried to include a mix of recommendations, so in this video today we have some literary fiction, some historical fiction, and some poetry as well. Also, do you like my t-shirt? It says, "More love." So the first book that I'm going to recommend today is one that I read quite recently, and that is The Immortal List by Chloe Benjamin. This novel is about 4 siblings who grew up in the 1960s in New York and go and see a travelling psychic woman to have their fortunes told and to be told the dates of their deaths. And then this book just follows the 4 siblings over the courses of their lives, in turn, over many decades that follow this event. This is a brilliant book that, among other things, explores sexuality and gender, and also discusses HIV in the time when it was first becoming treatable. I absolutely raced through this book. I love getting to witness all of the different characters' lives, and all of their lives are very different from each other's. I loved seeing all the different places they ended up. It's set in many different places across America. And it was just so interesting seeing how everything played out in their lives, knowing that they have this supposed knowledge of the day they will die. I just think this is a really good, entertaining story. It has moments of really great writing, there are lots of really nice, colourful descriptions in it, and I think Pride Month is the perfect time to read it if you're interested, and I would highly recommend listening to it on audiobook as well. The next book that I'm going to recommend was shortlisted for the Man Booker Prize for Fiction last year, and that is Ailment by Fiona Mosley. This novel follows siblings Daniel and Kathy and their dad, who all live away from and isolated from their nearest village, in a house that their dad built from them from scratch with his bare hands. So the family live a very simple and natural lifestyle, including hunting and foraging for their own food, and Daniel and Kathy do not go to a normal school. This novel is very intriguing and atmospheric and quite eerie at times as well. The writing is extremely distinct, and that was definitely my favourite aspect of this novel by far. The descriptions of the landscape and the natural environment in which these characters live are so beautiful and wild, and Fiona Mosley does not shy away from quite grotesque and visceral imagery in her descriptions as well. At its heart, this novel is a story about family and the relationships between people. It kind of explores how far the bond between siblings and parent and child will go, and it also looks at what it is to be an outsider. So it isn't made explicit in this novel how a certain character identifies. It doesn't say that they're specifically transgender or non-binary or anything else. That is left quite vague. But this certain character does definitely experience some kind of gender fluidity in the novel, and that's a theme that is definitely explored throughout, and it's a theme that was quite prominent to me while I was reading it. This is just a really unique novel that I found to be quite experimental and brave, and it definitely has kind of gothic tinges to it. So if it sounds interesting to you at all, then I would definitely say pick it up. The next book that I'm going to recommend today is a poetry collection, and that is Spaceship by John McCullough. This is actually one of my favourite ever poetry collections. It's absolutely incredible. So the poetry in this collection explores many aspects of love and life and human relationships. It really perceptively looks at human interactions, but it also more widely discusses really important contemporary topics and issues, including death from AIDS-related illnesses. The emotional depth in this poetry collection is absolutely stunning in the true sense of the word. I was absolutely blown away whilst I was reading it. My guess is that you will either really strongly identify and relate to the poems in this collection, or you will learn a lot through reading it. The wordplay in these poems is also absolutely outstanding. It's so cleverly intricate and playful, and there are so many different layers of meanings in the poems, which I absolutely love. And John McCullough also clearly has a passion for the etymology of words and includes that in his poems a lot, which I found so interesting. I genuinely cannot recommend this poetry collection more highly. If you're even only slightly interested in contemporary poetry, then you really do have to try this collection. I'm sure you'll absolutely love it. And if you just want to take one recommendation away from this entire video, then please let it be this one. I would love for more people to read it and talk about it. It's amazing, and Pride Month is the perfect time to read it. The next book that I'm going to recommend today is a historical novel, and that is The Gustav Sonata by Rose Tremaine. So this novel is set in neutral Switzerland in the 1940s, and it follows our protagonist Gustav Perler, who is a young boy who has a very lonely childhood and a very strange relationship with his mother. But then, whilst he's at school, Gustav meets an intensely nervous young Jewish boy called Anton, and the two boys become best friends. This novel has a very broad time frame, so we get to see Gustav and Anton when they're young boys and they meet, and we also get to see them as older men, and we also get to see a time before Gustav was even born, when his mother and father met. And all of this just paints a really full picture. This novel is full of a vast tangle of human relationships, and all of these relationships are so complex and intriguing. Rose Tremaine is just a genius at drawing and dissecting human interactions, and all of the characters in this novel are so complex and believable as well. This is just a genuinely wonderful novel that looks at friendship and unhappiness and longing and self-restraint. And the writing is so subtle and simple, but absolutely beautiful. I can't recommend this one highly enough. Definitely go and check it out if you haven't read it yet. And the final recommendation that I'm going to be giving you today is a more classic LGBTQIA+ recommendation. I wanted to include another one. In my last video, I included Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit by Jeanette Winterson, and today I'm going to be talking about The Colour Purple by Alice Walker. This novel follows a young black girl called Celie, who is born into poverty and segregation in South America. And Celie is raped and separated from her sister. She is trapped into an abusive marriage and has her children taken away from her. And then one day, Celie meets the glamorous and independent Shug Avery. So I read this novel quite a few years ago now, but it has definitely stuck with me. There is just something so distinct and powerful about it. One of the elements of this novel that I think manages to make it so powerful is that it's told through the colloquial voice of Celie. And while this kind of makes it a little bit difficult to understand at the beginning, I kind of didn't really know what was going on and it took me a little bit to get used to it. Once you do kind of settle into the rhythm of it, it makes for such a real and rich reading experience. This is just a beautiful book that really gives you a true sense of the time in which it was set, and the writing is also wonderful and the characters are so strong and well drawn and believable. I mean, it's a classic for a reason, and I think it deserves all the praise it gets. So those were 5 more of my LGBTQIA+ recommendations in honour of Pride Month, and as always, I would absolutely love to know what you thought of these books if you've ever read them before. So that's all for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching, as always. I really do appreciate every single one of you who is watching. Happy Pride, and hopefully I'll see you next week with my next video. Bye.